these two things, which I think are so important as well, love and community, are also changing, because I feel the idea of love is now again being distracted with identity, right? Whether who loves whom, who's allowed to love whom, what's your color, what's your gender, what pronoun or whatever. We seem to be muddying the waters when it comes to everything essential to our existence, right? So how does someone make sense of love when maybe they are required to be of a certain status, or maybe they are demonized for being a certain gender? So how does one navigate that? Because it is so important. But what would you tell someone?
Well, we're saying in this context of love, romantic love, and
Hmm.
that's not the only kind of love.
Yeah.
That we think of romantic love or having one partner or, a significant other person in your life.
Hmm.
But love is a currency that's available all the time
Hmm.
in how you treat everybody that you meet. It doesn't mean you're going to take everybody home with you and make
Yeah.
a life with them,
Yeah.
but just a love for humanity and a respect for people across genders, colors, cultures, religions. And, and I know to say that to somebody who doesn't have a primary love in their life, they're like, that doesn't sound satisfying. Everyone wants that one big love or that soulmate. But the best way to find your soulmate is to be interested in every person that you meet. We make
Mm.
so much judgment about who this person's going to be. Like they have to be this tall and they have to have this color eyes and they have to make this amount of money. And you hear all those stories of people who, they dismiss somebody and then they realize right in front of them was the biggest love of their life, right?
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
So, so it's really it's a come from. It's like how do you see the world and how do you see engaging with every human being? Sometimes it's easier to love strangers than it is to love your own family, because you have history with your family and
Yeah.
hurts and disappointments. But, you can walk into the food store and be kind and make a new friend, over the
Yeah.
pairs. So, we talked about love, community, and purpose as really the sources of happiness. And if you really want love, you give it to get it.
That's such a uh, eh, powerful thing, yet hard, because we were sort of conditioned to have these. One is, I think, preconceived notions, but also to kind of judge based on visual appearance, right? A lot of that. And the reason I'm leading up to this is because I'm visually impaired. I basically can't see people clearly, but as a result, I think it's played out better because I talk to people before I make the first judgment, right? Because of course, I'm not going on the streets talking to everyone. I'm not that benevolent yet, but uh, but when I meet people, whether when they used to either come for a show or when I meet them in public or when they come up to me after I go to someone or I'm introduced to someone, I'm I don't have the luxury of making that first judgment call, which I think I'm going to call a luxury because it pans out well. Because sometimes you might hear about, oh, this person who's coming to meet us, man, when you meet her or when you meet him, and then you have this in your head. But fortunately, I don't have the second filter, which it comes a little later because I have to spend a few minutes talking to that person. And sometimes, yes, I do trust my ears more than my eyes, and I'm like, oof, I wish I had eyes to, which could have saved me those 3 minutes. But it's amazing that we don't do that, right? We mm, as you said, like we probably are going on a Tinder date, but we might meet three people on the way, but we're like, no, 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 I have to go on a date. But those three people might have been more meaningful in your life than that date who might turn out to be
That's
horrendous,
right.
right? So how does someone, because I think to do this, to talk to everyone, to give them a chance to kind of give them a sense that, you know what, you might mean something to me, it comes from a place of loving yourself. Because if you are, because I was in the place where you don't love yourself, and everyone is being viewed in a very combative way, that they're a threat to my identity, they're a threat to my opinions, and it's a very different approach. Then you can't talk to everyone because you have this wall built around you. So how do you start before loving anyone or treating everyone openly? How does someone even look at themselves, and appreciate their worth, appreciate who they are for what they are, and how does that process, you know, begin for
That's
someone?
such a great question. And you know, for anybody listening, it's like when you hear, well, you have to love yourself first to love somebody else, and you think, well, you know, I don't even know how to do that. I don't even know if that's true.
Yeah.
But what that means is, you know, not so much give yourself gifts and go for massages. Loving yourself means listening to that critical voice inside of you and getting it to quiet, getting it to go away if possible. It's
Mm.
that inner critic that's how you're not loving yourself, right? So loving yourself isn't just going to the gym and feeding yourself good foods and, you know, like I said, getting a massage. It loving yourself is stopping that inner critic that says you're not good enough or that you're damaged in some way or that you're not worthy of love.
Mm.
And that sometimes is not as easy to hear. Sometimes it's more subconscious than conscious, but that's where it starts. That's where it starts. Because when you have less judgment about yourself, you'll have less judgment about the people that you meet. You're more open, you're more willing to give everyone a chance. You know, it doesn't mean you have to put yourself in danger or
Yeah.
or make yourself have to spend time with people you don't want to spend time with who don't interest you, but it just means that the lack of judgment allows you to connect with people and meet them where they
Mm.
are.
And which I think is such a, you know, essential. I mean, it's such a no-brainer if you think about it, right? Like if you ask someone, um, who doesn't have all this social conditioning, you know what? How would you approach that? It's almost like I need to take care of myself to kind of then get out in the world. But it's almost like we're getting out into the world and going, wait a second, I left myself back at home. You know, it's I don't have the tools or the strength to kind of face it. And but why are we doing that? I mean, I think we addressed it, um, with the university, high school children who are being given all these options before they truly realize what they want in this life. But it comes down to much more than that, and a much more fundamental thing, because every parent, when they have a child, when they have a baby, they want the best for that baby. But it seems that there's one point after which things go wrong. Is it like, you know, because as I told you, my wife and I have a 9 month old, and we want the best for her, and we're talking to other friends who have babies who are a little younger, a little older, and they want the best for the thing, for their kids, and they all have the same conversations. I mean, we're never going to let our kids use a smartphone, never going to be on social media. And I'm sure every parent had this. And now their kids are on Instagram having, you know, various groups and
Yeah,
going
the
through the whole.
three-year-old has Tinder.
Exactly. They don't even know the meaning of swipe, but they're doing it.
Looking for a play date.
uh, Absolutely. But how, where does this flip happen? Because it's much more than just the school system or.
No, it definitely comes from the parents. It definitely comes from the parents. And you want only the best for that child. So the split comes when when you start having a differing opinion from your child as to what's best for them. And
Ah.
as the adult, you're always going to feel like, well, I have more experience, so I know what's best for you. You don't know what's best for you.
Mm.
And that's where it splits. And I will say I have 22-year-old twins and a 26-year-old, and
Mm.
for several years now I've been able to say to them when I realized it in myself, like, you know, when I speak to you, you have to know I'm coming from love, but I understand how my fear does not sound like love.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm afraid that you're going to make a mistake does not sound like love. That sounds like I don't believe in you. That sounds like you don't have good judgment. That sounds like I'm judging you.
Right.
So that's the place that parents need to check with themselves is their love is so strong, but it starts to be translated into fear. And that's when it's not love anymore. It's
And that's when it
fear that
comes
I'm going to lose
from.
you, fear that you make a mistake, fear that this boy is not good for you. And that's where
Right.
the love gets broken.
But it is I mean, it is a, I mean, it's your need to protect them, right? But
Yeah.
how can that not be perceived as love then? Because you, through your more experience and wisdom, want your child not to make the same mistake. So you're saying let them make the mistake because maybe the mistake that you think that, he or she's going to make because of your experience, she might not do it or he might not do it.
Yes, and it doesn't mean you put them in dangerous scenarios, but I can give you an example from when my son was probably 8 years old, and he already had an interest in music, and he was an actor professionally, and I don't know, he had friends, he played baseball, he had all kinds of things. And then one day he comes home and he says he wants to play football. Now, I'm not a very large person, neither is my husband, and my children are tiny.
Yeah.
So do I want this itty bitty person to play football?
And you mean the
No.
American format with the
Yes,
helmets
I'm
and the,
sorry, not
yeah,
yes, the American
yeah.
format with, putting people to the ground with the big helmets on, right?
And which has a pretty high chance of some damage to the head. Yeah.
There you go. There you
Yeah,
go.
yeah.
So I want to protect my child. So instead of saying, you're not going to play football, I put on my coach hat, right? So that's my profession, right? And I asked questions. And I said, okay, let's write down everything that you love to do, that you do now, and
Mm,
put football on there. I said, now put them in the order of what's most important to you. And he put them in order what was most important to him, and football was last. And I said, well, what does that tell you? He
yeah.
said, I don't really want to play football. I don't have time to play football. And I was like, look at that. And I didn't have to say one unpopular thing to him.
Nice.
He did it himself.